Thanks for joining us for Fursona Time. I am Jonathan Vare Duncan. I am joined by
Sasha R Jones.
And you can find out our information in the show notes, but the gist of what we have here is an opportunity for us to showcase different fursonas. So if for some reason you don't know what a fursona is, I don't know how you got here, but that's okay. Hold my hand and get ready for a wild ride. These are characters with typically animal traits, and they represent the person that uses them online for many different kinds of reasons. And we'll see a smaller number of examples in this today. The theme is going to be, I initially advertised it as fursonas that are religious themes, but really it's any worldview in general. So you'll see that there are some views represented that aren't necessarily religious, but those terms are nebulous anyway. I think it's a good thing to first give like a quick primer as to our points of reference for fursonas and for religion. So do you want to start us off while I drink some of this?
Sure. Yeah, so if you've seen other videos, then you might be familiar with my background. I personally identify as agnostic because I'm committed to my inability to grasp, or I'm committed to my inability to know anything about the world for sure, because I'm just one person who, I don't think humans were necessarily evolved to comprehend the universe. We're just comprehended to survive within it, or we were evolved to survive within it. But also part of being agnostic means that I'm open to the possibility of things that I don't comprehend possibly being true. So that's my background.
Also, it looks like we don't have the camera on us this whole time, so that's funny. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So sorry about that if you just got to see our, just some abstract desktop. Well,
we hope you appreciate it, though. I mean, it's pretty nice.
I do like that desktop. I have a whole set of images like that I love, but that's not related. So sorry that I interrupted you. Please continue.
That was most of what I had to say.
Cool. All right, so my perspective for when it comes to fursonas, as well as my religious beliefs, I've had 3 fursonas so far that I currently identify with, and I've also created a bit of a light taxonomy to help people understand what traits fursonas have. I have the most religious one I have is probably one that was an extension of my Western beliefs. So I went through around 17 years of Christian school education. I'd identify as probably Christian, meaning that I follow the teachings of Christ, like Jesus, Judeo-Christian, Son of God, allegedly. And I don't really care all that much if Jesus is a literal Son of God or an allegory. I'm more interested in exploring the ideas, and I already feel like I have a deep and intimate relationship to a God that is infinite and synonymous with time and space and structure, metaphysics, things like that, and yet somehow intimate. So I don't know exactly what that means. And I actually like not knowing what that means, because if I could understand that completely, I feel like that would be a very human God. And I don't have much interest in worshiping something that I completely understand.
Yeah.
Because that would make it feel really petty, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I should expand too. Like, like obviously understanding that whatever assumptions I draw is probably from a limited context. What, excuse me, the way that I do tend to perceive things is I'm much more, the concept of like a subconscious sort of thing makes a lot more sense to me than like a literal conscious creator that is making active decisions about things, because I think that is simplifying things down to make it fit into a human perspective so that it's more relatable and understandable and digestible. And so I guess I sort of chafe at such restrictions or anthropomorphizations being placed on the idea of whatever thing there is. And so I'm more interested in sort of like a subconscious force sort of, I find I'm still figuring out what spirituality means to me. In the past, it's been more about like those intense moments of being alone in nature and sort of feeling a part of things and connected to your surroundings. But I'm learning what that means in terms of connecting to people. And so that's an evolving topic for me.
Yeah, we have a lot to learn about spirituality. Yeah. Oh, and there's so many there's so many future themes that this makes me want to bring up.
Mhm.
I don't know how much representation we'd have with Persona specifically, but wow, we have a lot to chew on.
Yeah, I also have a little bit of experience in Mahayana Buddhism. I'm not an active practitioner currently, but it does inform my understanding, and it's a useful lens for me to view things through, because you can Google up some sources where they argue that it's not even really a religion so much as a code through which to live your life. So
we have a pretty decent amount of representation in the chat, and it's nice to see 18 viewers joining live with us. We are taking submissions for future ones. The next week is not going to have a category for submissions. The week after that will be furries with a job. So if you know any blue collar workers who are in the fandom, or anyone who uses their imagery of their furries to get shit done, then we want to hear from you. Send us some images and a bit of text on where your persona comes from. All right, we have a much smaller pool of personas to go through today, but they are going to be a little more in-depth than normal. So let's get started by shifting to our screen share. And let's see, I'm going to check the live view to make sure that's shifted correctly.
we can go ahead and start dragging things over the other screen.
Okay, cool. True.
I think you might need to change it on this one.
Oh, like this is the dominant one?
Yeah.
Okay. So first we have Toledo. And thanks to Toledo for, okay, good. We are doing a screen share. Excellent. Thanks to Toledo for kicking this off, because his participation is the reason that we're even doing this series in the first place. Here's Toledo's note. I just want to offer a little bit of Sona evolution for the stream tonight. My first Sona created after I discovered that I liked dragons and anthros in early 2001, and it was a blue dragon. So just take our word for it that it's blue. After learning a bit more about animal anatomy and getting better ideas of what could be done with designs, I changed to a mammalian dragon inspired by various ungulates, which is how we get to this one. Notably, both of these forms play double duty as characters in never-written stories and personal symbols. I eventually came to feel that the dragon was too exotic for me, and given the evolution and my new discovery of the Seabiscuit biography, horse felt normal but aspirational enough for me. I like the symbolism of the horse as a friendly, persevering, hardworking, and inspiring creature, which brought him to this image. The star on the forehead I put there because of various events related to my first romantic relationship, which was really affirming with regard to my horse identification. However, that relationship fell apart, and I shunned anthro stuff on my LDS mission out of confusion about it. When I returned, I was still hurting regarding horse stuff, so I drew myself as a Gemsbach, which I'd always found aesthetically pleasing. Right here. Sorry about that. But again, it felt a little too exotic, but it's what I had at the moment. After a few years, I was able to resolve some of my confusion about my horse identification, and so I've returned to this Sona. It feels right in some ways that the others never did. My body design is never really consistent. The markings, however, are, and I've removed the star, which leads to another shot reminiscent of the older one. So we have this one and this one. In any case, my evolution was more about the species as which I represented myself and what that species meant to me, and less about the design. As a final note regarding being better, for the past few years, I looked back at my Gemsbach period as something false, a detour. However, I've come to realize that it played an important role in my healing process and have reconciled with myself. And so we have an image of reconciliation right here to end with. Oh. Yeah. Toledo did message me on Telegram later, and said that he feels like the horse didn't have a whole lot of spiritual consequence to him when it came to his species choice. It seemed to be more happenstance because of what he was interested in at the time, like things like Seabiscuit. So he just wanted to emphasize that from his perspective, he doesn't feel like it was a spiritual choice that pushed him towards a horse.
Yeah, it's more entwined with his journey just by what his relationship with Anthro stuff was in general.
You'll have to project.
Oh. Yeah, it seems more like it's entwined with his religious experience via that being part of his whole relationship with Anthro stuff in general.
Yeah, it was so neat seeing such a transition, especially one that starts with the dragon.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting to see a horse because it bucks a lot of horse stereotypes that I tend to see. The idea of a horse it seems to be interested in like diverse topics if it's a stand-in as a literal avatar from a photomorph.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not a horse whipping out a horse dick, nor is it a horse engaged in pony play.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's neither of those things
makes it feel more genuine.
Yeah, definitely more genuine. And it's really interesting to, I don't want to say bucking a trend because I won't use that pun.
You already did.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see a horse persona buck the trend. Anytime there's a slant towards a behavior in a species and I see someone completely avoid it, I'm automatically interested in learning more about them. Oh yeah, something else I wanted to highlight, this Gemsbach image. Seeing someone with hooves trying to operate a pencil is just such an endearing thing to me.
Yeah.
I think that's just so cute.
Yeah.
And I also love it because we see hooked characters that are just stand-ins for us doing regular things. But I want to see more images of them suffering because they can't play video games. Or, I don't know, even zip up their pants.
Yeah.
Like are they just going to go through their lives with elastic drawstrings on all their shorts? So thanks for sharing that with us. Mm-hmm. We really appreciate it. I'll switch to the face cam as I clear all this and we get ready for the next. You can keep an eye on the chat if you'd like while I'm getting this next one ready.
Oh yeah, Heavy Hoss says he was actually going to be a dragon originally too, before he decided to be a horse. And
I want to pretend that's a thing now.
Yeah. And Toledo said he actually had no idea about the sexual connotations of horses until he started looking them up in dictionaries of symbols. And it annoyed him.
Sweet, pure Toledo.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll make this text a little bigger so it's easier on you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is Nomis X Mole. You want to start reading and I'll pull things up?
Nomis X Mole is a sapient colony of microscopic machinery so advanced as to appear magical. It generally takes the form of a dark gray monster based on the North American lion with a number of idiosyncrasies. It can imitate other species.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
It can imitate other species.
When we get the window back up. So
sorry about that. We have such limited space here to operate.
It can imitate other species or combinations of species if it wishes to express itself differently or to adopt other perspectives, which may help it understand others or itself more totally. This is how it represents Nomis's beliefs and worldview. Nomis X Mole is a representation of a belief that is crucial to my entire spiritual path, which was expressed in alchemy as the fixing of the volatile. The idea that the more toxic, explosive, or otherwise dangerous something is, the more potential it has for healing or creative purposes if it can be properly harnessed. Nomis is a weapon, a disaster choosing not to happen, which is something I do constantly, trying to harness itself to some fulfilling and positive end. Each of its features is a representation of something about myself, either symbolic or a feature I actually possess. Often these features arise in inspiration before I even know why, and by puzzling them out, I learn more about myself and grow. This is how Nomis was actually created, and it continues to evolve. I can detail the symbolism behind each feature, and over the last year, my persona has overhauled itself considerably with the massive amount of inner work that I've been doing. So the way Nomis came to be is that it's been developing over the last 18 years from a collection of nebulous archetypes to a fairly simple design, to its present design. Briefly, the inspiration started around the time I was coming to terms with my sexuality and its relationship to my faith. I delved into the occult for a while out of vindictive rage against what I thought was an unjust god.
Didn't we all?
Yep. I came back to the sort of eclectic mysticism I have now, and in a meditative journey, I climbed the tree of Sephiroth, as in an actual huge tree, to ask God what my true name was, the name of my soul. I heard a voice tell me, "You have no name, for no name can encompass all that you are." I went looking for a way to express this and found Nomis X Mole, who has no need of names, in a Latin-English dictionary. It stuck. Later, I wound up living with some furries and a Therian ex-boyfriend introduced me to because I needed a place to go after my house burned down around me. I spent a few months living in a tent, and I moved in with and then nearly killed my abusive ex-fiancé. I took the nebulous elements I was aware of and converted them into a persona in an attempt to belong in the new community I'd found. And so we have some details on some of the different pieces that have been included. The one on the far left, Run, this is a piece of thin art that started as a sketch and that I reworked into a finished painting. Nomis is so emotionally disturbed that its body is beginning to come apart, preparing to attack a threat, overwhelm it, and tear it apart. Nomis is desperately trying to stop itself from doing this and fears it will fail. This has happened to me many times. And then the middle image is based on a picture one of their partners took of them, which has been included. So here's the photo. And then, excuse me. And then we have the eyes, one of the first traits that overhauled itself right after MFF 2016. These eyes are very symbolic. Hypersensitive, hypervigilant, often in a defensive and inscrutable stance. They used to be white discs in a black scleras almost always. I gave them the ability to open up, explaining the... Whoops, oh no.
Sorry about that.
I'm not Mac fluent, I'm sorry. They used to be white discs in a black scleras almost always. I gave them the ability to opening up, explaining the normal appearance as a protective third eyelid. I was and am trying to learn how to let myself be vulnerable. I wish it were going better, but recently I'm making real progress, I think.
So something I thought of when I was looking at these things, along with how Nominus in real life seems to look like an anime character, is that these themes do seem to be inspired by what I'd expect to see in anime. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me think of how all religious art throughout history is contingent on a person's frame of reference. Mm-hmm. So you get like
you're borrowing a set of symbols that are commonly understood.
Yeah. So you get a bunch of people throughout a civilization who have like a certain frame of reference and a way of thinking of things, and what you surround yourself with is pretty much what you know, and that becomes your language. So it makes sense to think of that in the context of art history, and then think of the shows or the films that Nominus is probably inspired by as being something from him to borrow from when it comes to these more intimate and abstract parts of himself.
Yeah, and it's useful because even subconsciously referencing that language sort of primes viewers to think, okay, this is the angle that this is being presented from, and so I should be understanding it with this set of circumstances. So as I think that I haven't seen like a whole, I'm not currently an active viewer of anime, but I've watched quite a few series in the past, and in general, the storytelling involves a lot more complexity and has a lot more room for sort of the complex themes that is being discussed in the backstory.
Mm-hmm. All right, we should be able to squeeze an update in from our last participant. So just making sure I have that ready to go.
Cool. Yeah, I like the idea of a character that's a system being used to explore these themes.
Yeah. I've seen this need to express certain themes more explicitly with eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think of that? Because normally I just see like my eyes change color with my mood, but this is like a whole, seems to be like a whole design change.
Yeah, this is a lot more deliberate, and it seems like it's, in this case, it's a very deliberate way of them trying to get to force themselves to view others differently and to understand how they're being viewed, which is much different from, oh, my eyes are mood rings. This is more taking the idea of eyes as being the most direct way that you're interacting with other people a lot of the time, or perceiving them and them perceiving you. So yeah, and this interpretation seems like it's serves as a meditation for the person.
Yeah, when you see engaged here, it looks like it's some sort of hyper empathy where there's like a galaxy in there and it's like reading into someone's psyche. And the idea of this being in one's chest does feel kind of like an Old Testament creepy heavenly host kind of design.
Yeah.
For those who aren't familiar, there's actually some really creepy designs in the Bible. So apparently the kinds of creatures that God would choose to relevant. The kinds of creatures God would choose to inhabit the heavens do look pretty similar to stuff like this.
This is actually a book that our friend Biss did. That's Christmas carols that are more literal translations of heavenly creatures. So
these things include, like, not just in this artistic interpretation, but in a like straight up literal biblical interpretation.
Yeah, there's some strange shit, but it's great.
Yeah, there are like multiple wings, there are multiple eyeballs, there are certain body limbs made of different metals and other materials. It's like really creepy,
but fascinating in that way.
Yeah, very fascinating.
Which I actually think that in a like religious spiritual sense, that's more relatable than something embodying a human form, because then it's like, oh, but you're catering to me now if you're presenting as a human. Come on.
Yeah, I think it's kind of silly to have to feel like everything makes sense when it comes to your beliefs and that everything is human shaped. Because I like the idea of a Judeo-Christian God that's a creator, and this God creates human beings in their own image. So for us to be God-shaped is pretty cool. At the same time, I think it smells fishy to me nowadays. It doesn't strike me as being enough to suit my sensibilities based on what I think is true versus untrue.
Toledo's asking who's the author of the book. It's Biss the Box, which we'll try and put in the show notes, but you can see them at Biss the Box on Twitter. So that's BIS the Box.
So that's twitter.com/BISTHEBOX.
Yep.
Okay. And because this is a Google Hangout, that actually wasn't a link. It should be.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, you gotta put the HTTPs.
There, that's actually a link.
Okay, cool.
Heavy Haas asks, what if your physical appearance isn't what's being referred to when they say made in their image? Exactly. What if it's not? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
That's a more interesting answer than the literal.
Yeah, because there's far more to the universe than our perspective on it. And when you look throughout history of human beings being wrong about critical things, I think it's pretty stupid to think that we have it all figured out mostly.
Yeah.
So that's also a pretty good segue into our next persona that is not at all religious. Or is it? We'll hear that soon. This one's from Max. That's Max VVELL2111
on Twitter.
On Twitter. They're also a stream regular on our Twitch stream. This version of my persona represents my ideal transhumanist self. I'm an atheist. I believe that self-improvement comes from yourself and from other close people, technologically and mentally. So I believe in the human spirit and might and a bright future. I thought that was a pretty good start, but I did eventually have to ask, okay, I mean, I get it. It's pretty cool and all, but why are you an atheist? Because anyone who says that they're an atheist and agnostic really has something to prove, because they're saying that they're confident and they're resolute in their belief that there is no God. If they're like straight up atheist, although they're clear, there are different levels of it. It doesn't have to just be a binary. But if you say I'm atheist, then yeah, you really have a context that brought you to that point. So I asked, where did that come from? Max said, I was raised Catholic, but I always had trouble believing the stories. Faith didn't dispel the fears of the dark and the monsters and demons. Now I find some monsters kind of sexy. Well, don't we all? Later, I compared other religions and said, damn, T, no answers. Then I turned to science and that gave me all the answers of how the universe, world, body, mind, and technology worked. Then in 2010, my mom died. Prayer nor ritual helped to cope. I knew it, I said. There were other factors in education, but generally that's it. So in that context, Sasha, tell me what you think of these images.
Yeah, like the assertiveness that you were talking about earlier makes sense. With this character, there's like, I like especially seeing a character that has the sense of being like, there's no word for transhumanist, but as a furry. So sort of transanthropist, I don't know. They're a character that has technology integrated, but they're clearly like the personality of this being like a fun individual that really enjoys connecting with others comes through a lot more than like, oh yeah, I'm like physically enhanced. So they're not trying, the middle image is trying a little bit to be cool, but you can tell that at the core, this is a character that wants to interact with others. And so their philosophy of betterment through surrounding themselves with close relationships and using those people to grow themselves and one another, I think stands true. I think the patches of warmer tone on the character's face and chest really help give it that sense of something you can still connect emotionally to.
When I see this, I do think it's a pretty good response to saying, I will take matters into my own hands. And the fact that a Sergal could make the active choice to say, my body is just a shell, and I will augment this as I see fit, is very much consistent with the creator's beliefs. And especially if what little wonder and investment Max had in religion, if that was snuffed out with the death of their mother, then I think this is further an appropriate persona for that experience. Now, something that does strike me as interesting is that they felt like they turned to science, which gave them all the answers of how the universe, world, body, mind, and technology worked. So like, obviously, science is at the mercy of what we can directly observe, and that's like expanding all the time. Yeah, so that's expanding all the time. Science can't currently give us all the answers, but I do think with time and with ingenuity, we're going to have a surprising amount of observations for even things we deem spiritual right now. Because I think spiritual is just like another kind of energy. I don't think it's really that romantic or crazy, honestly. But there was, for whatever reason, all the answers Max needed at the time were satiated in what science could offer them. And this was even before they lost their mother. So that's interesting to compare this to my beliefs, where there's a lot of like origin and intention that I'm looking for that I can't find with just things that are directly observable under a scientific method. So that's also why I can't have a persona that looks like this. It would pretty much be impossible for me. And it's neat to see an illustration of how different someone else's persona can be from me, and just know, oh wow, I could never have that. I mean, it's cool, but I could just never have that for me.
Yeah. So it's nice that somebody else gets to embody it.
Yeah. Yeah, Max, thanks for sharing that with us. Really appreciate it. You mind checking out the chat?
Sure. In response to the earlier topic about God's image, Toledo says, yeah, the traditional Mormon response is to say that God's body is human shape. That caused me some angst. Now I'm more open to bodily shape being a form of communication in itself. Heavy Hoss says, I have a deep hatred for my own physical self. I have always wondered if that is by design or if I'm to receive a different shape in the next life. And Namina says, I actually felt the same way, Heavy Hoss, but less than I used to. I started making Nomi look the way I do in terms of body image as a way of voluntarily embracing the things about myself that I don't like. And Heavy responds, I did the same thing when drawing anthro versions of Haas, but it only made me resent it even more. And Toledo says, I've seldom drawn my character with my own body type, in part because he has a different body type in nearly every picture I draw of him. Yeah, it's interesting how that will work with some people, having a character represent your body type and not with others. So it's different types of processing and different things you need to work through.
Yay, Max celebrates. I'm consistent. Yeah, you are. It's good to see. Sometimes a person's persona doesn't actually gel with their beliefs, but they're hoping it does.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like a whole other level of unpacking you have to do. And I've been in that position as an artist who has to take on commissions. If I see a character that's cool and enjoyable and sexy, but it's not necessarily what a person needs or even what they believe in, it's kind of them running away from things.
Yeah.
Then I have to call them out on it and say, as someone who loves and respects you, I can't take this commission. And that can hurt to hear, of course, but it's also my obligation. All right, let's go back to not hearing us ramble.
Cool.
This is Hazard, and this is a really delightful compromise. This is a delightful compromise between where we were before. How about we tag team this one?
Yeah, I'm excited to learn about this since I've seen Hazard around, but I don't really know much about them.
Okay. I'll get to here and then we can switch off for this part.
Yeah.
I grew up in a Christian household with Christian rules, etc. I was very indoctrinated at a young age to where I was having a debate with my 7th grade science teacher about the existence of Noah's Ark, etc. with creationist ideas. My Sona was Kahana, a wolf with a cross across her back, like the burro that carried Jesus on his back. The wolf character constantly being torn between themselves and being chained and loyal to my Christian upbringing. I had a lot of inner turmoil and unanswered questions that caused a lot of depression issues. After I had a major craniotomy/cranioplasty surgery when I was 15 going on 16, I had a complete change of ideas and thoughts, was questioning God and my beliefs and everything I had grown up with, and was having some identity issues as well. That's when I adopted the name Hazard and started drawing a winged skull demon character that was constantly the pull away from my original self. Let me get this up. Constantly the pull away from my original self and Sona. This character also bred another character that helped me to get through some neurological issues since I was still having residual issues from the surgery into college. All right, I was having a lot of issues with my personal beliefs in the church and was pushing away as well from my parents' rules and structure. After I got a pet iguana named Jax, I fleshed the demon out into an iguana beast that reflected my new self more. And over the years, they've become what Hazard is now, kind of an evolutionary abomination to God. Kind of the whole thing started from a reptile ancestor before becoming what they are now. You want to hit up the next one?
Okay, cool. So the first image called Hazard at the time, this was after so I think that's the wolf one is the first one we're talking about now. This was the character Hazard slowly melded into, still has a cross.
Sorry about that.
Oh. Yeah. Still has a cross, and this time it's a scar on their chest. So let's pull the wolf back up real quick. I had a lot of symbolism on there for a while, and they were kind of tempting me away from religion. Oh, so this might be
this one. Okay. I assume.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. We got.
Sorry, my notes were.
No worries. We scrolled down further than I realized. So I'll start again talking about the wolf.
Sure.
Called Hazard this time. This was after the head surgery when I started questioning my faith, beliefs, etc. But still staying within the safety of it and hiding so as not to be judged for what I was thinking back then. Okay, cool. So now we're on Hazard -2.
Which is this one.
Yeah. So This was the character Hazard slowly melded into, still has a cross, and this time a scar on their chest. It had a lot of symbolism on them for a while, and they were kind of tempting me away from religion, opening myself up to other things I used to be afraid of because of my religious beliefs then. And then the third one, yes. Then I got my pet iguana, and I was going to college and opening my mind to new things and making my parents uncomfortable.
Nice.
So the fourth one, when I removed Hazard's wings, it was a complete removal from my beliefs as a Christian. I started leaning on deism and soon into agnosticism.
I'm just busting that up, or pushing that up so people can see it.
Yeah. And then we have one more.
And here is the last one, the Hazard that we know and love today.
Yep. Yeah, this is the character I recognize.
Yeah, so, yeah, please continue.
I lean more heavily on paleo stuff since my parents are creationists and so dinosaurs were okay.
Can you project clearly?
I lean more heavily on paleo stuff since my parents are creationists and so dinosaurs were okay because they're mentioned in the Bible, yada yada.
Yes.
So dinosaurs were my safe go-to, and I wanted Hazard to reflect that aspect and yet still hold some old ties to what got him to this point in the first place.
Oh,
Nice.
Yes. So this is a particular treat for me because we had this character on at was it the very first Fursona time we did?
I don't know. I didn't get to see that one all the way through because I was having some connection issues.
Okay, this was almost Stabler Cake because I mean she was participating because I remember that she was talking about the characters and the coloration.
Mm-hmm.
So I could geek out about this design, which would seem like it's incredibly complicated and almost cluttered, but if you do a value check on this and check where the grayscale values are, it's actually super solid the entire way.
Mm.
And it's like really impressive that it has a lot of intimacy, but a lot of thoughtfulness behind it. And I could not have expected it had all this context. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And also the fact that it's also a representation of their of the context they came from, but repurposing it in a completely different direction.
Mm-hmm.
Let's compare that
it's taking ownership without completely divorcing yourself from your roots.
Yeah. So now let's compare these
Yeah.
two.
Yeah, we've still got that same yellow-green color in there.
So you should consider the colors closer to what's on the monitor there.
Oh yeah, this monitor is going to flatten things out. That's right.
Yeah, this really needs recalibrated.
Yeah.
Again. But what can we assume about where this character has been based on what we've heard and when we put these two back and forth? So obviously this is definitely like from a different era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was like even just the choice of like a wolf is an attempt to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the latter one is definitely taking note, like a stronger note from your personal interests. And yeah, they both have like bright colors and they both have sort of these aspects of a little bit of modeled patterning,
Mm-hmm.
but the latter one is just leaning in a lot more heavily because it's not trying to apologize for anything.
Barbed wire around the neck. Yeah. Yeah, barbed wire. Oh, you can't take that off.
Mm-hmm.
Tear from a tag. But this you can actually picture walking around and talking as a person, especially with these outfits.
Yeah.
That I could also imagine them wearing in person.
I love the item sheet on the top too.
Yeah.
It's got like the iPad and that's cool. Little cactus.
Yeah, this person clearly came from somewhere and they are also going somewhere too.
Yes.
This one, I can't imagine this character being born and then someone being like, all right, got to put this barbed wire on the neck.
Yeah.
It definitely exists as a... But this is definitely the result of many, many years of introspection.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for sharing the journey that got us to that point. Okay, Sasha, friend, what's good? Look at that chat for me.
Sure. Let me see where we came from.
Where did we come from? Okay, we got Leon with the info. Thanks, Leon.
Okay,
I'll be pulling that up. Let's see. Yeah, I'm consistent is what we last read.
Oh yeah. So people were talking some about relating their character to their body type again, and Nominus said that one twist is that they draw Nominus as a little bit ahead of them in terms of fitness goals sometimes, which they think has helped. And
I completely agree. That's, I think, the best approach to doing a persona that's going to represent you in any way, especially if it has to do with something being positive or sexy at all, is to do something that you could attain yourself realistically and then get to that goal and then have the persona improve. Or if your goal is, like, I don't really have much interest in being bulkier than Resin's design.
Yeah.
So my goal is, if I get to that point, to celebrate it and maintain it and then explore within.
Yep. Let's see. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Xristi Eno says, myself, I had Awakening back in 2008. I never was able to really connect to Asona. I tend to draw my muse and spirit guide more than anything else. He has aided in recovery as I dive more into new age views / pagan views that call to me. Okay, cool. I can see how it would be helpful to have something that was not a direct representation in that instance.
I would actually call that a type of persona.
Yeah.
That you are pursuing. That would just be, under my terms, paradigm. So if you haven't, please check out Personas, Types, and Stereotypes. It's the most popular talk I gave. It should be my featured video, but it's in my YouTube channel. Bookmark it now, and I think you'll really have fun checking it out.
Yep, and then we also had Heavy Hoss in regard to Hazard says, I think it's interesting how many characters like this have names with negative connotations. They imply a defect / flaw in one's consciousness. Yeah, it's an interesting way to. That's an interesting thing to deliberately take on for sure.
Yeah, I'd say the standard approach is saying, well, damn, if I can't improve myself, then I better just own it. Yeah. And if you go to the furry fandom, which is also a space of a bunch of kids who were bullied when they were little, and they all trickled down a funnel into one place, and now for the first time in their lives, most of the time they get to decide who they are, then it's yeah, that's true. It's pretty common to see negative traits that are trying to be repurposed. So I think sometimes, I think it's almost always well-intentioned, but I also don't think it's healthy 100% of the time. So case-by-case basis.
All right, cool. What do we got up now?
So next, we have my Dragon Bro Drain. One of the many blue dragons I've had the pleasure of working with. For some reason, they're always blue. I don't know why. I don't make the rules.
You've typecast yourself.
All right. How about you hit the beginning? I'll hit the end.
Okay. I haven't really commissioned much art or published any of the backstory I have for my character, but I like to view him as an ideal for the convictions and action I aspire to live out as a Christian. But he's not perfect. His internal conflicts and failings mirror my own, but his responses to these things are what I aspire to. You know how Paul says, I do what I don't want, and I don't do what I want? My character is a reflection of that struggle and trying to learn from it. Also, as you know, I don't explicitly / literally tie my beliefs to my character in obnoxious ways. I like to abstractly and subtly apply Christian ideals, morals, and references to him and things in his backstory in a way that's still true to what I believe.
I think it's more important for me to show that I have issues and faults as a Christian to better get across how much grace and forgiveness mean to me and how much those things influence what I'm doing or why I'm doing what I'm doing with Drain. In other words, I don't like emphasizing how good I am as a Christian by depicting my character as some holy figure. My character has dark aspects. Your commission with me, the middle one in the screen, is one part that I've tried to tie to the character, but sometimes darkness is the best way to point outside yourself to something that can save you from that via redemption. Also, I think that depicting my spiritual struggles along with Christian ideals and themes I resonate with in this way is a helpful condiment, yes, on a burger maybe, a helpful conduit for me to let out what I'm feeling and thinking about some things. It's also a great pathway to talk about my faith with others when they ask what my commissioned art is all about. And I love being able to discuss it with people that I never thought I would talk with before I got all this, because gosh, am I passionate about it. I had the pleasure of doing almost a character design type commission with Drain, even though he has the design established here. So if you have a character that has a religious affiliation and it's tightly wound to who you are as a person, but it also is, well, no, actually, can I restart that? Because I fucked up that sentence. if you have a character that represents your beliefs, and your beliefs have abstract things like God, that's not going to be evident necessarily in your persona. Just like you as a person, you're not going to be radiating majesty lines, and you're not going to have a glowing halo above your head. That's like clearly missing the point. And if you did that on a character, that'd make you kind of an asshole. What I like about Drain's approach is that he is grounded, and the most literal thing you're going to get is a very, very small charm right here that you didn't even see.
Nope, I sure didn't.
So I like that you'd have to get close to experience that. And I like that's also not like glowing gold or something.
Yeah.
Like, guess what beliefs I have?
Yeah,
That's not really something he does.
It's hanging over the ear instead of like around the neck is really nice, because then it's almost like it's closer to them in a way. It's not about it being on display for you. It's just something that they like having.
Yeah, so the root of his identity and pretty much all of his actions has to be from the foundation of his beliefs if he's going to be true to himself. But he's also very self-aware about the failures at large of the Christian church being misrepresented, just like I am. We come from pretty similar flavors of religion. So the commission, I would love to hear more talk about this one, because this is new to me. This would, I imagine, be the darkness he's talking about explicitly.
Yeah, that's one of Xyleth's pieces.
So I can say this piece with me is talking about specifically the themes of if you are going to be, well, basically like if you have a god that's omnipresent and it's huge, that makes you like as tiny as an ant, right? So how can you do justice to your own identity and your impact as an individual in submission to an infinite God? So we basically had to do something that was macro and micro at exactly the same time, but it's a matter of perspective, and it has to be ambiguous. Because if you have a macro furry that's a Christian, not saying Drain is in either direction, but if you did, that's actually impossible to be macro if you're submitting to a God. So when we were working on our commission together, I was thinking, first off, damn, that's a really weird and funny caveat I didn't consider. Yeah, I guess macro furries can't be macro around God. Huh, there's probably a lot for us to chew on there that I didn't expect. Oh man. But Drain has been a real pleasure to work with. He's just like such a loving and respectful person who really cares about making sure that his intentions come through. So I recommend, if he wants to commission you, that you strongly consider it, because you will be #blessed, but unironically. You'll be unironically blessed. All right, while I'm fumbling over these windows, we're going to get to our last fursona. Would you kindly check up on that chat for me? See what's going on.
Sure.
We also have here too.
Yeah. Let's see. So I'm just going down. Ariana says, "Thank you so much for addressing the sanctimonious nature that some people give to their character. I've seen that a few times, and it's tacky to say the least." Toledo says, "When I've depicted myself as saintly, which I have a couple times, I see it as aspirational, like people with fitness goals. It's my potential, not my present."
It's my potential, if not my present.
If not my present. There we go.
Life is going on, John. I wonder what that's referring to specifically. Life is going on, John. Ishway speaks in riddles. She's the kind of person where she talks and you're just like, oh, that'll make sense next week. I can't chew on this right now. Okay, let's get back to our screen share. So this is Leon McBain.
Yeah, I'll let you read that since that's a little far away from me to see on that screen.
Yeah, this is over here on the other screen.
Yeah.
So, okay, we got this share up good. Today marks the 6th anniversary of my participation in this fandom. Really? Oh.
Wow.
Today, that's, wow.
I'm impressed you know the exact date.
Yeah, I would love to hear why that is. Today marks the 6th anniversary of my participation in this fandom. The only reason that I decided to come to this in the first place was that I felt safe in the knowledge that these two different worlds did not have to be exclusive to one another. I have laxed my original fixed understanding of the church and of the fandom. You, Jonathan, are also a major milestone in that progress that I've made. I still want to keep the LDS church in my life on purely objective grounds. I found that there's a lot that benefits myself and the future potential family. In a more spiritual sense, I love the idea of perfection being possible, and that after all I can do myself, God can make up for the rest. It gives the expectation of realistic effort, but gives hope when I feel despair. So when I see these images, I think of the experiences that I've had with the Latter-day Saints Church. And for those who aren't familiar, it's a pretty common practice for individuals who graduated high school to spend some time in the MTC, which is, I think, the Missionary Training Center. And then they'll go out for a 2-year mission, even if they're as young as, I think you can be like 16 or 17, but it's pretty much like you have to at least graduate high school. And in some cases, you're just you and someone else your age that are going out to a whole new world. So Leon sent a message about his mission in more detail that I'll read now. My LDS MTC district, right before we left to Chihuahua and nearby states around late spring of 2009, that's on the left. I had a personal piece commissioned by my friend Jessica. Her DA account is dead now. I have a few other pieces that I'll post later of hers. I'd been in the MTC for a little while at that point and didn't even know about the fandom. She had drawn me a piece of me, the otter, and I was looking at it when my MTC companion kind of grabbed it from my hands. I was terrified that he'd say, what the fetch is this, Utah lingo? But to my surprise, he said, this is awesome, and proceeded to show to everyone in our room and the other rooms in our district. Everyone wanted to commission her, but we didn't have enough time before we would leave, so she drew us this group photo. Oh yeah, and Elder Johnson wanted to be a Ninja Turtle.
I was wondering about the Ninja Turtle. I was like, this is nice, but why is there a Ninja Turtle?
And his expression too.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, I know I'm a Ninja Turtle. I did that on purpose. If he falls off his bike, he's ready with the elbow pads too.
Yeah, yeah.
Christmas while Elizabeth and I were on our missions on the right. I was in Ciudad Juarez. Ciudad Juarez, and Elizabeth was in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria. Canaria?
Good job.
No, can you say it? I can't do those. I can't do Mexico.
I don't know that one actually.
Las Palmas de Gran Canaria.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just a gringo. I can't do it.
My dad's Venezuelan, not Mexican, so I don't know.
So this reminds me of the interactions I've had with LDS missionaries and how they're normally guys that were my age, and they normally gave up a lot to do what they did just by going door to door. They know how awkward it is, and they know that most of the time they are not going to have meaningful interactions. They're going to be made fun of or harassed. So if you see a missionary come to your door, please invite them in, give them bottles of water that are unopened so it's not creepy, and give them, please sit them down and give them a place to rest for a while, because they're there because they genuinely love you and care about you, no matter what your expectations or opinions are of the LDS Church. I know my Spanish is non-existent. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I'm sensitive.
Yeah, it's funny because the thing that you're proposing would actually be a little bit outside of my bounds, but we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Why would we talk about tomorrow?
Because the drink and think tomorrow at, does it start at 9:30?
Yeah, 9:30 p.m. CST, Central Standard Time.
Yep.
Well, what's the topic?
The cost benefit of vulnerability.
Yeah. Yes, we're going to run a CBA, a cost-benefit analysis of being vulnerable with yourself and with others, because that does cost you something every time. Mm-hmm. But what if the gains are far greater than the costs?
Well, you just have to determine that for yourself.
Yeah, we'll pretend it's objective so we can feed you a concrete answer tomorrow. Thanks to all the participants of Persona Time. I loved getting to talk to everyone about this. Mm-hmm. We have, let's see, we have technically, we have 1 hour left. before, because we normally run this 2 hours. So give us any questions that you may have about personas or what our motivations are in creating them, and we'll plug the group chat again. There's a group chat for the Drink and Think going on that are, for the Drink and Think and Persona Time, and you'll find those in the show notes. So just like scroll down below this video and you can get access to this talk. You'll probably meet some cool people in this chat. I know I met some neat people for the first time here just going through comments. So the discussion doesn't have to end after the videos. Verse says that they have a facet of their old persona that would fit into this if they'd thought of him sooner. Well, you didn't. So you can feature him next week. Yeah, next week we are doing Persona Time, and we don't have a specific theme. So please share your personas. This is a time for us to celebrate the designs and the legacy that you have in your relationship to your persona. And we want to share that with others. We want to ask some good questions, and we want to help you make better personas too, or talk about what's going really well already. Ishway says, have you had to not take a character design commission for a reason you are willing to talk about? Oh, let me see. Yeah, actually. So I was on my way to Spectrum Live earlier this year, and this one character design commission fell through the cracks. This was someone who had like a cheetah character, and they said, I want pastel colors, and I mean, that's already what I decided I want. That's not up for discussion, because I like pastels. And I'm over here like, why do you need pastel colors on your cheetah? Like, why is that what you need? Because in case you can't tell from my artwork and all my character designs, it's pretty rare that I'll do something that's completely unnatural. And if you can't imagine your character actually coloring his fur, then there is going to be a bit of a disconnect in your relation, because then it's just going to be a cartoon. It's not going to be something that can live a concrete life. You can't really imagine it being born, coming out of, well, pretending it's a mammal coming out of another animal's vagina, neon colored. Isn't something that's too common. With birds or scalies, anything's fair game, so that's great. Just pop out of an egg and you look however you want. But if someone comes to me and they say, like, I have a cheetah, it's pastel, I like pastel, it's going to be pastel, then my first thought is, oh, it sounds like you've already designed your persona. That's interesting. So I actually think that I dropped the ball in communication there, because I was in the middle of a convention, and I think I lost all motivation for it after saying, I have this problem here, can you unpack it? I feel like the answer wasn't resolute enough, but I didn't come out and say, nah, I can't do this, sorry. So my apologies if you're the client, the prospective client who heard that. Maybe we can still work together. Damn, that was like March.
You said further confusion. That was...
No, not further confusion. It was Spectrum Live.
Oh, Spectrum Live. Okay.
Yeah, Spectrum Live. I remember I was with Kirsten Zerngibble, who's going to be in a future Drink and Think, and she's a blast.
Yes.
Yeah, their persona would probably be a plant.
Yeah, either a plant or an insect, but probably a plant because the whole roots connection thing.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's some people where you think an animal would just slow you down. You really need to be a plant. She's something. Oh, she's really something. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see. Versk said, nah, I would drag out the old god trip dragon for no good reason. Oh no, Versk.
Yeah.
We'll take it. We'll take it. I'm not beyond that. I need submissions for these things. It's not like I can just do this without you. If I did, it'd be like, hey, we're here for another Persona Time. We're going to show you more pics of my persona and how cool it is.
Yeah.
Which I would love to see if I could do that for a whole 2 hours. Ariana says it sounds like rules for Wizard Duel. No pink cheetahs and stuff. I guess it's kind of like a Wizard Duel that I have with myself in some ways. But yeah, I truly believe that if you have characters that are super, super fantastical, but they're not necessarily a response to the world around you, then it does change your relationship to them. And I think we get the most leverage out of personas if they can be closely tied. Like if it comes from positions of reality, I guess. So it doesn't always have to be boring photorealistic wolf that's either gray or red and that's it, obviously. But it really does change if you have a husky every time and it's always neon blue and one eye is green and one eye is I don't know, glowing black. I've seen a lot of things. Let's
Leon
see.
there.
Oh, I picked 11. Leon picked 11, 11, 11 specifically for my join date because I wanted to do it on a memorable date.
I have a friend who got married on that date, so.
I think that says a lot about Leon too, that he's like anticipating that this is going to be a moment for him. So like clearly he's thinking in the big picture here.
Yeah.
That says a lot too. That's really neat. Nomis says, I'm really curious if you have any general or specific suggestions about using a persona to explore spirituality.
Oh, good question.
That depends what spirituality means to you, because it can mean anything to someone. I've heard people use spirituality interchangeably with an emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still trying to explore what spirituality means for myself. I just feel like it's a whole other layer of connectivity that I have to others that I can tap into with emotions and with physical interaction, but it's just like a whole other dimension of engagement for me.
Mm.
And I'd be very surprised if everyone else had the same opinion of spirituality that I had.
Yeah.
But this is also because the most important thing that I have on this planet is how I'm connecting to other people and like trying to share the connections I have to that spirituality. So it really depends. Like I can't offer any general criticisms. Something that I did want to mention is when Drain had a character piece that was about something dark. That's not necessarily a hopeless image, but sometimes to make progress, it is going to really hurt and it's going to really suck. And there's some things you might be afraid to commission. Like I know he and I both, we were treading some sensitive territory because we were touching on themes that had to do with him being like really honest and vulnerable with himself. And we were trying to make sure that we did the right thing and we held a lot of integrity with the commission. So it was a real intimate process for us, even though it was still doing furry art at the end of the day. But I think it's no different than people commissioning art of old saints that were in stained glass windows and hung in museums today and on frescoes. I feel like it's exactly 100% the same thing as the art that you'd see back in the day. The medium's different, but the message is still the same, in my opinion, even though it's furry art. And that sounds crazy, but I really think it's just as true and genuine as any religious art in human history. And that's one of the many reasons the furry fandom excites me. Let's see here. Angry, that's Max, I believe. I think that a cyborg persona gives you possibilities of change and transformation, just a body swap. And I like that it has a level of practicality. I also think that reminds me of the pitfall that people who have transforming and shape-shifting characters fall into. Did we talk about that before?
No, but I think it's also you distinguish shape-shifting and transforming as ones that have like many forms, and
yeah, we'll say shape-shifting, not transforming.
Yeah, that they don't have a singular actual true form.
Or even if something does have a singular true form and it's a shapeshifter, I still feel like that is a character I keep seeing apply to people who don't set limits well in their lives. And they also have a hard time agreeing to something.
Yeah. Would you say that's true of the case that I have with like Theron though?
It did come from a time when how could you set limits? You're still like trying to figure out the whole world around you, even internally.
Yeah, I guess the character itself is an exploration of sort of bridging cultural gaps.
Yeah.
Where there really isn't there wouldn't be an easy way to exist in the in-between space.
Yeah.
So it's a compromise in that way.
Mm-hmm. The people, like another way to word this when it comes to limits, people with shape-shifting characters, they want to make people happy to their own personal detriment much of the time. From, again, what I'm noticing, this is just conjecture. Obviously, you can have a shape-shifting character and you can still stand up for yourself in healthy ways 100% of the time. Because I'm not defining some truth by looking at furry art and then saying, this is true for everyone.
Yeah.
You're fucked if you did this persona for yourself. Versk says, shockingly, the crazy god dragon named literally the creator was a reaction to the world and probably also to senses of being trapped and shackled, held back by aspects of my life while I was in high school. Is that shocking? That doesn't shock me very much. Specifically because he was always asleep and trapped inside my head. Yeah, I would actually be a little more concerned if it wasn't a response to stuff like that. If it's like, yeah, I have a happy, healthy life, and here's my dragon god.
Yeah, I think Risk might be being sarcastic with the shockingly though. Knowing Risk's tone of voice.
Yeah, I can picture it now. Can you picture voices? I can hear it now. Leon says, what's the most unexpected religious thing that you've learned? Probably that I was wrong about a lot of fundamental things in my own beliefs. It was a response. It was after I spent time with, like, John and I have talked a lot about the Latter-day Saints Church, or sorry, Leon is the name there. Leon and I have talked a lot about the Latter-day Saints Church, and there was a moment where I did a lot of praying, and I was pretty much ready to convert to the Latter-day Saints Church, and I spent a lot of time with the missionaries, and we even listened to a lot of material, and I went, okay, I'm going to read the Book of Mormon. I'm going to see what it's about. And I got 2 verses in, and I went, oh no, I don't feel like this book is the truth. Like, it took me 2 verses. It feels like the tone of it's completely off. This can't be the first translation, right? Oh, it is? Well, why does it sound like the King James Bible? Oh no, I think this, long story short, I felt like it didn't hold up from what I learned. And then the missionaries, when they told me, oh, everyone thinks this at first, you have to keep reading. Like, everyone thinks this at first, and you knew my background and you didn't prepare me for this. You were more worried about me getting into your kind of heaven than than taking this as seriously as I was. Like, you were a little more afraid of it than giving me the truth straight up because you thought I couldn't handle it. So maybe that's just an issue of pride on my part, but I didn't appreciate that, and it completely shaped how I viewed my own beliefs from that point, because I felt like if this book doesn't hold up to my scrutiny, then what am I missing about my own beliefs and how I view the Bible? Because I started questioning that more and more to begin with, which is what got me to the point of internalizing the principles that the missionaries were offering me. And that's just the first time that I really truly sat back and went, uh-oh, I don't actually know anything. And maybe when people think my beliefs are a joke, they feel like exactly how I'm feeling right now. Huh. Okay, I guess I'll be a lot more serious about what I don't know from this point on. But that policy has been good to me so far, because these people who are this passionate about their beliefs, myself included, they think that they are pursuing the truth, or they have some truth to an extent, right? Like Jehovah's Witnesses that were missionaries, they're more aggressive about their truth in general than Mormons. Mormons are better listeners, and they're more service-oriented. Jehovah's Witnesses who were on mission were more likely to say, we have the answers. This is the only truth. And the Mormons are like, yeah, we may believe it's the only truth, but you're important to us on a personal level, and we want to acknowledge that. All this to say, I should shut the fuck up. We can't just talk about that for the rest of the stream.
We could talk about what I asked you earlier about why there's a Sonic character in the
ad
for this.
So I started writing an article.
I'll let you do that while I go pee.
Cool. And then I can pee too. Oh, Max, thanks for subscribing on YouTube. Really appreciate that. Just got a little update. Helps me a bunch if you subscribe and like this video. You can also dislike it. I don't mind if you dislike it. If that's truly how you feel, then, who am I to make you like a video? Anyway, I'm going to go to my Medium page, and I want to share an article that I've been working on for some time, on and off. Let's go to my stories, and this is my working title for the article. Dear Christians, if your God is real, why is your art so terrible? And here's the opening. You are on the hill of Golgotha. An anxious fire radiates from your chest and blasts through your sinus cavities, stirring with the smell of everyone else's sweat. Conflicted, your eyes feast in voyeuristic satisfaction on the slow and agonizing death of 3 men. Extra attention was clearly given to the man on the center cross, the one that claimed to be the Son of God. The crown of thorns is pressed into his large ears, dried blood caked in his blue fur. You look at his noodly ankles crossed over each other and bound in cord. his once pristine red soap shoes and white gloves now impaled by giant stakes. By his sides, 2 other almost identical anthropomorphic hedgehogs. Yes, it is the year 33 AD, and all 3 crucified men are the Sega mascot Sonic the Hedgehog from the best-selling 1991 video game. You're not sure if this anachronism makes this more or less difficult to watch. So I said I went to Christian school for 17 years, and when I was in 2nd grade, I was in kindergarten. My sister was in 1st grade, and Kevin Coram in her class drew a picture of Mount Calvary with the 3 crosses, and we were all supposed to do crosses for Easter. That's a Christian celebration of Jesus's crucifixion and resurrection. Still a little morbid. Anyway, he put 3 Sonic the Hedgehogs on that cross, and that's pretty funny. But then when I went to another Christian school that was hundreds of miles away, and I was in my 12th grade year, senior in high school, right before university, there was another 2nd grader who did a picture of 3 video game controllers on the cross, and the Xbox was his favorite, so that was the cross for Jesus. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, what can you do? It makes sense because I had the most technical power, but he did lose points for me on that day. I was an 10-year-old. So, I'm sure if you go to other Christian schools, you'll find pictures of people that just keep adding Sonic the Hedgehog and other video game references to crosses because it's what they know, and they're so excited and enamored by those images that it makes sense for them to portray it with something that's important and ceremonious. And we do this with our personas too. It's also why you get a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog Christian overlap, because the amount of people who have a Sonic franchise marketed to them who are also young and impressionable in the United States, who are also in a relatively religious context, there's a pretty decent overlap there. And the natural consequence of that is creating Sonic the Hedgehog, super muscular, praying for the sins of the world. That's actually completely normal thing at this point. Okay. There's a question for you, Sasha, sure. And I'll take this as a chance to go to the bathroom.
Yep. So, Edgar asks, I was wondering, how does magic and fantasy connect to your beliefs and your art? I guess this is a better question for Sasha, since magic is a predominant theme in his work. So, yeah, it's an interesting question. I guess magic specifically, I'm actually not that interested in magic as it pertains to fantasy. Or at least I'm not interested in it when it feels like magic. My favorite fantasy themes and worlds showcase it as more integral, it's just another system of nature. So, for example, this actually comes full circle a little bit, because one of my current favorite, I think my all-time favorite fantasy author so far has been Robin Hobb. But that's more for how I want to paint like she writes, just in terms of the descriptive nature and the intimacy with the characters, and the immediacy of it is kind of in this dreamlike yet immediate state. But anyway, one of my other favorite fantasy authors is Brandon Sanderson, who I think is LDS. Somebody in the chat might know that and can confirm for me. So it's interesting because I wouldn't guess that based on his writing, but all the magic systems that he has feel very integrated. Confirmed, Sanderson's Mormon. Feel very integrated, and they're woven into the pattern of the universe. It's not just I cast fireball, it all has reasons that it exists and makes sense. But that said, I don't think that magic is the major draw for me in fantasy, because I like things to feel integral and connected, and that almost applies to me. In my current work, you can see how my interest in fantasy and my interest in nature feel very overlapped and merged, because I feel for me, the greatest wonder that I can experience is found through things like intimacy with nature and contemplation of. So it's either macro, like thinking about like the cosmos and the universe, and trying to imagine like the ridiculous scale of things in that regard. Like wow, I think Dio was saying something about work the other day and mentioning, oh yeah, this thing weighs this many tens of thousands of pounds, and just trying to imagine something in her place of work that weighs tens of thousands of pounds, like fucks with my mind. And so in that way I find large scale things fascinating, but I also find zooming down into looking at something intimate in nature equally compelling. But it's something where you're there and you're seeing it and you're touching it. And so so that for me is like as close as you can get to like wonder and magic in the sense of spirituality, because I feel like it's easy to look at those patterns and sort of feel like they're tied together. Like you can see, just sort of universal patterns like that. So as far as that ties into my beliefs, I guess my sense of spirituality isn't something that I like to put words to or describe, because I feel like that the second I try to put language to it, it's going to limit my perception, my ability to perceive it as fully as I could. I would rather just feel it through and see what it offers me than try to codify it. And so I guess experiencing nature in that intimate way just gives me a sense that I find hard to describe. And it's sort of a state where I'm able to appreciate things the most intensely, I guess. So I hope that answers your question. Also, I think that fantasy is interesting to me as somebody who always felt like I wasn't able to express myself as I was. And so I think fantasy and my gender history tie in together, and especially being non-binary, there's not space for me in my culture's like current set of language. Mm-hmm. And so it's always been natural for me to look outside of what I'm told is accepted and understood in order to find answers and to find a place where I fit. So
I can mostly understand that from walking in later.
Yeah.
But not firsthand. It seems that we have no more questions in the chat, so feel free to join our
it's an interesting question from Nomis, or a statement.
Oh, this one or this one?
I was looking at Nomis saying, there's a line above him. Oh, okay, let's see. Leon says, I've shared stories about how 2 of my bishops did not convey the care needed for me to recover from perceived sinful behavior. They would be the equivalent of doctors without bedside manner. I think that's in response to your earlier statement. And
yeah, Leon got fucked.
Yeah, and Dominic says, one of the things I love about Unity which is their current church, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like pretty much an all-accepting church.
Yeah, is that it's often described as exactly that, a hospital for spiritually sick people. Mm-hmm. The minister there has even gone so far as to say that religion is for people who fear hell, spirituality is for those who have already been there. Which is an interesting conclusion.
Yeah, I really love that. Yeah. Spirituality is for people who fear hell.
Religion
is for people who fear hell. Spirituality is for those who've already been there. Oh,
that's an interesting take. Yeah,
I love that. Huh. I bet, like, I hear that and I think that's so smart. And yeah, I think it's really going to hold up, actually.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to apply it. Look at this lens going forward and see how I can apply it.
Does that mean you're coming to church with me tomorrow?
No, it means the opposite.
That's okay. I had a very good reason for missing my Bible study. Because I had relapsed in my sex addiction earlier this week. So I talk about that in my weekly recap. And I was thinking I could go to this Bible study where they have a system of talking about sex addiction that's not going to be all that relevant to me, because they don't even know how to define male and female in concrete terms. Does anyone?
They attempt to, but they don't understand how much they're falling short.
Yeah. So they have they have such a tiny frame of reference that they're not going to be that helpful, because it'll be mostly me asking questions. Or I can spend time with someone who already understands my struggles and my identity on a much deeper level, where we can have those kinds of positive interactions anyway. So, which one am I going to do? So maybe when I am better next week, by next Saturday, I can actually show up to the Bible study and be like, okay, I feel stable enough for this. And Sasha's already back in Texas or Tennessee, actually. So yeah, sure, why not? I'll go to the Bible study. Ooh, Max said Scientology almost trapped me with their marketing. Then I saw the alien behind the curtain. Nice. Okay, Techno has a question, and we'll end it there if there's nothing else. I got a question about SL if you're not busy.
Who's SL?
Maybe that's Second Life?
I don't know. See if there's anything else. Second Life.
Yeah, give us the question. Yeah, give us the question.
In the meantime, reading Edgar's response to my statement, I think that's the same reason why I love science. Yeah, it's definitely there's plenty for me to contemplate there that blows my mind. Just trying to sit and let the full weight of something, like understanding how much I can't grasp it, but trying anyway.
So I wonder if we're going to get that question on Second Life, or they're just going to say they had one. So they'll leave us all wondering until the next video. We may never know. We can start closing things out very slowly, and maybe they'll type it by the time we're done.
Yeah, in the future, if you have a question, just ask it. Don't ask if you can ask a question.
Yeah. When it comes to interactions, especially through text, I really hate when someone says, hey, there's something I really want to tell you, but then they just don't tell you what they want to tell you. Like, you don't have to wait for me to read the message to keep typing. Just say it and then I get to it. That's how text works.
Yeah.
Especially if people are really busy. So we got the question. If your other half flirts hardcore on Second Life and you're in a closed relationship, how do you deal? Well, this depends actually on a few factors. So, I mean, this isn't really on topic, I guess, but I think this is a good one to end off, as weird as it is. So let's make it personal, because for those of you who don't know, Second Life is where you have 3D avatars and you interact in a space. So there's an emotional intimacy that can be exchanged there. I feel like I was cheating on my wife, not even a few months after our marriage, because I went from my porn addiction to specifically masturbating with other people on webcam. And when I ask people, do you think this is cheating by your definition, I'm not asking to clear my conscience. I'm asking to hear, what's your expectation of intimacy and like bonding, and what is your understanding of the consequences of a virtual interaction? So I've actually heard answers on both sides of the fence, like really odd, polarizing answers as to whether I was cheating or not when I did that. Which, like, how weird is that people could like actively argue like he wasn't cheating?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you really have to have a discussion about it so that you each understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
You can't have a solid answer without communicating about the topic.
Yeah, basically what I think is the most important thing to do is to say, if your significant other was there, what's their standard for morality? What's their standard to you? Like, are they breaking their own personal integrity in doing that? And if they're not breaking their own personal integrity and they can express that to you explicitly, what are you going to do then? Are you going to say, wow, I guess I should have changed my expectations about what cheating is? Or are you going to say, you know what? I don't want to be with someone who breaks my standard of morality. That's completely up to you. So your question is a little more complicated than just saying, how do you deal with? Because I can say how I deal with, but that's only one part of the picture. I don't even know where anyone's significant other is coming from.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that this is you too, because you can just be like, hey, my girlfriend cheated on me or whatever. Close relationship. Yeah, we could talk about that all the time. You should come to our drinking thing tomorrow, because we'll be doing the same kinds of discussions we're having now, except we'll be drunk, or at least buzzed.
Yep. First actually has a good question, I think, to close out on too.
Okay.
Have you guys found that when someone is going through some kind of personal issue, changes in their sexuality or gender, that they grow away from their religion faith, or at the very least from the one they were raised with. Yes. I find that to be often true, because a lot of the time there really aren't many, or it's very hard to make those sorts of, to shoehorn that into most Western religions.
Yeah.
It's really not made with that. It doesn't allow room for that or explore it all. And often, because it's assembled together from different people's perspectives and opinions into a single book, you've already got it like conflicting itself. And so it usually doesn't make sense, or there's not enough of a reason to try and contort the message into something that is going to validate you. Even though I was definitely had not identified as Christian for a very long time, when I started questioning, gender questioning, I still felt like I wanted something to say, something to like give me an okay on it somehow. And so that was actually when I first went to a Mahayana Buddhist temple in Austin. I was going for like most of a summer, I think, while I was in school. And I remember talking to the nun there, and she sort of described this, that in Buddhism they view sort of your body as, your current body as a nest, and your spirit goes from one to the other as you go through, and that your spirit itself does not have a defined gender. And so it's sort of whatever nest you are in. And so I was like, that's an interesting perspective. And I guess I could use that to give me let me feel okay, and feel like, okay, well, there is a pre-established worldview that I feel like I could fit in with. And I did continue to go there and learn what I could from it, just in terms of a way to focus and to improve. Like meditation is very useful for actually making your brain better at being able to control, to divert your emotions into healthy ways. But like in listening to her say that, I realized, oh wait, I don't actually need somebody to tell me that there's a pre-existing system that says this is okay. I don't need that level of permission. I don't need anything. I'm already strong enough in my own views. And it's also like, it's scary to go without a safety net in that way, where you don't have a set system of morals, or, well, this is how it's going to work, or this is where you fit in. Like, oh yeah, it's terrifying going without that, but it's also often a thing you need to do, because you're not going to find, by choosing something where all the answers are already there for you, is going to limit your ability to discover things on your own to a certain degree. So
I'd say the reason why people are likely to exit their faith when it comes to identity changes is because most religions in the Western world are designed to be stable.
Mm-hmm.
And for things to be stable, they can't rely too strongly on individual truths and individual expression if you want it to also be in tandem with, I guess, like supporting something that's reliable in the big picture. So if you get a lot of sexual repression, and if you get a lot of conservative views that are, really detrimental to an individual, it's like I kind of lost track of people who grew up, got married, had kids, and went, oh, I guess I've been lying to myself about being gay the whole time. Oh, well, I'm almost dead. I've actually seen that before plenty of times. I have friends who have been the children of someone in those positions where there's just like some sort of tradition to uphold. And that's not always religious even, but that's so ingrained in the story of identity and finding yourself. I'm over here constantly questioning my beliefs. And even before my sexuality was deviating into something that was, I guess, not heteronormative, I was definitely questioning my beliefs then. So I feel like by the time I had my coming out moment, or at the time I said I'm mostly gay, I find myself more attracted to men and masculinity than not. I felt like I was actually closer to my God in that moment than ever before. And I couldn't relate on a personal level to all the people who had been like, fuck this, fuck the church, you all are homophobes and all this other stuff. And I think they have very good reasons for believing that. There was a time when one of my family members, when I came out to them, they said that I came out to my mother for attention. That's what they had assumed. And they also said that they basically like pigeonholed and stereotyped me. And the way that they did it, even though it was just one person who was really close to me, it made me feel like, oh, I guess I should wear some, like a sequin thong and go to the next Pride parade and start, having as much sex as possible so I can die of AIDS. I guess I'll make that my new trajectory in life. Like, I really did feel that way because I felt like as hard as I worked at loving others and being true to myself, if that wasn't enough for the people closest to my life to say, yeah, but you're a gay now, so we don't trust you anymore with certain things. That made it really easy for me to understand how people can just say, you know what, I'm done with my religious beliefs.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I never had that, and I kept the truth my pursuit. And I figured, well, if my God is the truth, and I'm pursuing the truth, I'll find that eventually, and I don't need to worry about losing my beliefs. So I guess I never lost them. If anything, I've been closer than ever before. And my spiritual connection is like strengthened on a daily basis by being honest and close to people and allowing diverse experiences of others to influence my big picture. So how about we end on that?
Yeah, sounds like a good note.
Cool. Thanks again for joining us for Fursona time. We had a lot of fun here. I just double checked. We had fun. Okay, good. Just want to make sure I was being honest.
Mm-hmm. So
tomorrow's Drink and Think is going to be a great time.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. We have a lot to sort through and figure out how to talk about it.
Yeah, if you're fans of Dio, the Tasmanian Devil, our very own Dio is going to be participating in tomorrow's Drink and Think.
Or even if you're not a fan and you want to learn about a human being.
Yeah, especially if you're not a fan of Dio, you owe it to yourself to show up.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really good experience for everyone.
I'm going to do my best to bring the realness too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, real talk from everyone. It's going to be a time where people of differing opinions get to show up and just like try to understand things better. So that's also the tone of the group.
Yeah, I like that we get that Fursona time's a very different tonal note from Drink and Think.
Yeah.
Like, there's a shift.
Yeah, Fursona time's more about shit posting.
Yeah.
And I do love shit posting, but I also love people who are of all these differing beliefs and experiences who are just like sharing themselves and saying, now what? And then you just get to watch that snowball into something that's more and more complex and poetic.
So check out the Telegram group in the description of the video below.
Yeah, and I will link you the Drink and Think.
Yeah, we're going to link it directly into the live chat too, but note that you should switch over there to continue talking because the live chat will disappear shortly after we finish.
Yeah, the next Drink and Think ad is up on YouTube already. Mm-hmm. And in case I didn't say it already, I thought I did, but just in case I hadn't, the extra time that it took for us to get this together was because I have patrons. So please support me on Patreon. It's linked down in the show notes as well. Yep.
You can catch us on Twitch. It's, twitch.tv/Sasha R Jones, twitch.tv/Jonathan Bear, and
also linked in the show notes.
Yep, and we also have a multi-stream, multi-Twitch link on our individual Twitch pages. So usually we stream in sync, so you can watch us both at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, there are a lot of ways to engage with us. So if you like the energy that's going on here, you can actually have that on a weekly basis because it's really important that we stay present with you. Thanks again for being part of it. Hope you have a good night. Safe travels. See you tomorrow at the Drink and Think.
Thank you.
Bye.